Welcome back from lunch. And now we go more into the details. Actually, we go into the segments. And in the segments, you will see the market, what we do today, what we will do tomorrow, and which kind of strategic levers we will trigger to achieve that. And very important, our segment heads will show you examples of existing business what very often was already announced, where we do already that, what we target for the whole group. And the first one is AM Europe with Jürgen. Your stage, Jürgen.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks. Good. Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming back and joining us in the afternoon. Appreciate it. My name is Jürgen Liedl. I am Executive President of the segment Engineering and Maintenance Europe, so E&M Europe. I'm with Bilfinger for a little bit more than 10 years now. And I'm also part and member of the Group Executive Management Team that you've seen at the beginning. What I would like to share with you in the next 30 minutes is what we aim to achieve within E&M Europe in the next few years, how we are going to achieve it, and why we are confident we will achieve it. Let me start with the what we want to achieve with the financials. The segment E&M Europe, it covers about 2/3 of the Bilfinger revenue overall and also 2/3 of our workforce. So it's really the backbone of that company. Yes, the volatility in our markets has increased in the last few years, but we do see underlying developments and market drivers that makes us confident that our addressable market growth is going to be on average 2% year by year by year, what you can see here in the midterm CAGR. We're also in a very good position due to our current coverage already that we can benefit from that above average. So we will add another 2% self-propelled growth, and that brings us to about 4% year by year growth that we're targeting despite volatilities set out there. I will come to that in a minute, explaining how we manage those volatilities and how they, in the end, also add benefit and opportunities for us. Looking at the profitability, the segment E&M International has generated a 5% EBITDA margin last year and also a 5% EBITDA margin the year before. That is good, but that's not where we want to end up. So we have a plan in place that brings our profitability, our EBITDA margin, midterm to 7.8%. What are the individual levers or steps to do so? And I will also explain in further detail later. It's the efficiency program that Thomas and Matti have explained in the morning, that we will of course also roll out throughout Europe. So further strengthening the functional organization, standardizing administrative work, bundling things, transactional works especially in the shared service centers, so that the business can concentrate on what it should do, i.e. the client and the business. And in addition to that, we will further work on increasing our operational excellence. We want to grow in profitable segments, so that will add another 1 to 2 percentage points over the next few years. Let me talk about the markets. And Thomas has shown and explained the kind of new normal that we, our peers and our customers are in. What are the specifics for Europe, especially in the engineering and maintenance geschäft? Again, it starts with inflation. I'm sure you have heard a lot about this. Inflation is something that has kept us busy in the last 12 to 18 months and will continue to keep us busy. The wages of our workforce have increased, depending on the country, between 4% and 12%. Raw materials like steel have gotten more expensive, also insulation materials. The good news is we have been able and we are able to pass on a big chunk of that to our clients. Two reasons. The first one is because we have contracts in place that allow us to do so partially. And the second one, that comes with the labor shortage. And that brings me to the next lever, labor shortage. This is something that has been in our industry there for quite some time. If you look at the average population on a chemical plant, on a steel plant, on an energy plant, it's not the 25-year-old. It's more like the 55 years old. So attracting and retaining qualified labor is something that is a task for our industry overall, and it has been. Now, what has happened since the COVID time is that the mobility of workforce has also decreased across Europe. In the past, and still, people from Romania or Poland, they travel to do work, they commute to do work in Belgium, in Netherlands, and Germany, in Scandinavia. As the wage differences between those parts of Europe is getting smaller and smaller, the excitement of the Eastern European workforce to do that is going a little bit down. So that also, in addition, creates labor shortage. Now, what's the way out of that? Efficiency. Efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. And that's also the discussions that we have with our clients. It's a limited amount of labor it's a limited amount of labor that is available. The labor is getting more and more expensive. And we work together with our client to apply that labor that is there in the most efficient ways. And again, we are in a good position to do so. That's also why our clients are willing to pass on, to take on inflation effects from us. And that you can also see, if you look at our EBITDA margin in 2022, it's not heavily affected by wage increases. We have maintained the same EBITDA margin level as we had the year before. And that also brings me to digitalization. I hope you have seen and talked to our colleagues up there, and they have, Dennis and his team, somewhere, have explained to you on how we are bringing out the paperwork from the operations on site and how we increase the efficiency in the administrative work, but also in the operational work out of that. We will continue to do so. Deglobalization, number 4. It's something that we are seeing as the supply chains of our clients is getting more and more disruptive. So we do see productions being shifted closer to the customers. And that means modifications of plants, and that means also new investments. And again, that is a revenue stream for us. Yeah? And you may cite the German chemicals industry now not importing any gas from Russia any longer. Like 12 months ago, that was still 60% of the feedstock for gas was coming from Russia. As per today, it's 0. That means our clients, they need to modify the plants. We are there to do so. We also see biopharma, and Thorsten will explain more about this afterwards. We see quite a lot of pharma and biopharma investments in Europe. Once these plants are operated, someone needs to maintain them. We are there to do so. And we also see similar things now, first sites being built again in some chemical clusters in Europe in the chemical industry. So that helps us. So overall, that leads us to a market growth of about 2% year by year that we expect. There are some specifics. I was mentioning biopharma, where we are sure it's going to be an above market growth. Chemical industry was the big question mark, not only for us, but for everyone, especially in Germany, with inflations in gas prices and the questions about availability of feedstock. As you have also seen in our order intake now in Q4, that has proven much more robust than we were concerned about. So this industry we see more stable than we have expected, which is good news. And this industry also invests a lot now in sustainability, in changing their power supplies and these kind of things. Oil and gas has seen quite a big catch-up effect in the last year out of the COVID crisis and oil and gas crisis. We are positive that if you look at carbon capture projects, if you look at changing the gas infrastructure from conventional gas to hydrogen, there will be quite a lot of work in the European oil and gas industry for the next 5-10 years, and then we will take it from there. But in the meantime, of course, we are aiming at limiting our exposure to that industry. So overall, 2% growth in a volatile market, because many of those dynamics are speaking for us. Now, we are adding 2% of so-called self-propelled growth. Why are we confident we can grow above the market average? In the end, simple reason is because we are already today the number 1. You will not find a lot of service providers in Europe who can cover that whole value chain, from consultancy to engineering to modifications to maintenance and turnarounds across all of those industries. So we're active in chemicals, oil and gas, energy, pharma, biopharma, and others like steel and so on. And we are active in many countries, but not in all countries. And if you look at our strategic markets, so the countries with the dark blue, in Germany, we are the number 1 in the industry, and independent reports confirm this year by year by year. In all the other dark blue countries, we are already between the first 3 of our market players. So there is good potential to do even more. Another specific things, Thomas was explaining the horizontals. If you look at E&M Europe today, 75% of our work is framework contract. So again, we are there on the sites for years, if not decades. We have 3 to 5 years framework contracts, and usually the client expands them. So that's why 90% of our work is repetitive, if not more. And we know the clients. There's a big intimacy between us and the clients. We know the sites, we know the players. We are there, we are aware when things are changing, and we are investing. All of that is also reflected if you look into the financial development of the segment. Revenue is now close to 2.8 billion, so above pre-COVID level, with a good catch-up and some nice entries into new products in the last 2 years. Our EBITDA margin is 5%. So we have managed to catch up and be even better than before COVID in 21, and we have confirmed this now and delivered this again in 2022. Again, is it where we want to plateau? By far not. We have a plan in place to grow that further to 7 to 8%. How do we want to be in the future? We want to do more of all of those good things that we are doing with new clients on new sites and also in new countries. So you will see that we want to fully cover our maintenance and turnarounds portfolio in all of our core markets. Market is always a combination for me between country and industry. We want to significantly grow in the engineering, but also in the consultancy, because that allows us to provide higher margin services and higher value services. We will hold our position in new builds and modification, coming back to what Matti has explained, to manage our risk portfolio. And you don't see any major changes in the verticals, in the industries that we will address. Yes, as I said, we will reduce our dependency on oil and gas. We will focus more on our core industries. So oil and gas is going a little bit down compared to the previous page. Others is going down, and we will grow that more in pharma, biopharma, and energy. What we will also do is, selectively enter into new countries, into adjacent countries. So we want to be present in more countries, going there with our customers for a product, for a service, for a client where we are confident and comfortable that we will do this. What are our strategic levers? And you've seen all the strategic levers in the presentations in the morning. I would like to address the ones that are of, I think, highest significance for E&M International, and not walk you through all of those levers. What we did, of course, we took the levers, we said, okay, what does that mean in detail for our business in Europe? Where does it have an impact? Some of them growth, some of them profitability, you see it on the chart. And what's the timeline for that? I want to start in the middle, digitalization and innovation. Sorry, not fully in the middle, a little bit above the middle. I want to start with standardization and bundling. Why? Again, we have one of the broadest coverage in the industry on those sites. What we will do more and more is develop a standardized way of executing also the operational work. So not only what we will do in administration, we will do something similar also in the operations, in the different services. I'll have an example with me on that later, on how that works and what the effect is. We are installing so-called product centers, not as something new, but where we bundle the know-how within our existing management and workforce on defining best practices that we're doing on various sites, and then rolling out those good practices or best practices across the site. That increases the efficiency. That means for us a higher margin, but also higher attractiveness for the client, as we are also more efficient for them. So that has a big impact on profitability. And what we will also do more and more, and we're seeing the first examples, I have one with me as well, is bundle these individual services into solutions, to increase the efficiency from us and to reduce the complexity on our client side. So moving from single services to multi-trade, where we already are, to the next step then, these bundled solutions. Digitalization and innovation, again, you have seen all the beautiful tools and apps that we have upstairs. You have also seen, hopefully, our drones. That is one example where we're using in the offshore oil and gas industry, but also within confined spaces. When you have a tank, you're using drones to do inspection services. So again, it requires less manpower. It also exposes our colleagues to less too risky environments. And it combines individual things that we are doing. We are also using the first robots. This is right now still dedicated to certain use cases, mainly when it comes to blasting and when it comes to painting. So also there, we're working together with technology companies, with universities, and these kind of companies to find use cases where we can apply this. We bring in the know-how and the intimacy of the client. Our partners, they are bringing in the technological know-how. What do we need for that? Competence development. And again, I said, okay, of course, we will implement the efficiency program when it comes to efficiency, but we also need and will develop the competences to do so. If a worker on site or a foreman or supervisor has to provide a complete solution, not only one services, you need a completely different skill set of that worker, of that supervisor, of that foreman. In terms of technology, in terms of communication with the client, but also contractually. And we are investing 25% of the savings, as an example, into these kind of things. We need to educate our workforce to be able to offer and to execute all of that. And when it comes to standardization, we are rolling out lean management to help us drive these standardizations throughout the group. We are building training centers where we then teach our people off-site on how to apply those different types of working. That will feed into our growth and into our profitability. This is something, it's not new for us. We are taking it more seriously. We are dedicating more funds to that because we want to accelerate it. And this will be ongoing. It's not a one-year effect. We will continue to do so because, of course, the development never stops. Market expansion will feed into our growth because we want to cover the full value chain in all of our existing markets, but it will also feed into our profitabilities because we want to further focus on higher margin segments. Again, engineering or technical consultancy and the bundling of services is something where we see our clients are willing to pay a premium for us, and we will benefit from that. And then we will selectively expand into adjacent geographies. Sustainability part of that we are already starting to do, but this will keep us busy for the next 5 years. First, start with the full coverage of what we have and bundling, and then selectively go into new geographies within the map of Europe that you've seen before. Finally, sustainability partner. Also, this is something where we have started, I would say 2, 3, 4 years ago, developing product solutions for our clients that help them assess their CO2 footprint and reduce the CO2 footprint. Nothing new for us, something that will be there also for the next years, and where we have quite some good reference cases in the meantime. And again, there is quite a lot of level of detail behind that. So we have a plan, we have a timeline, we have an effect on the revenue, and we have an effect on the profitability, and it adds up to the numbers that you've seen before, also then in Thomas and in Matte's presentation. Now, let me give you some examples on how we are already doing this specifically. And I will start with something which I'm really proud of. That's a new product that we have developed. It's the so-called CO2 master planning. What is the challenge for our clients? As you know, we work in the chemicals industry, in the pharma industry, in the food industry, in the steel industry. All of our clients, they have a huge CO2 footprint. And they're all measured significantly by their investors, by their clients, by the public on reducing this CO2 footprint. Now, what you usually see is that our clients, they know their core process quite a lot. If you go to a chemical plant, for example, where really the chemical fluid is flowing around, this is the core competence of our clients. And they have, of course, the capabilities, and they do so to design that production process in a way that limits resources and limits emissions. But if you look at what we call the outside battery limits, so everything around, the surroundings, the utilities, the power generations, things that are much more agnostic was the word, yeah? This is where we come into place. Yeah? This is not in the focus of our clients. This is where we have huge experience, because a boiler is a boiler, and a motor is a motor, and a converter is a converter. no matter whether it's in the steel plant or in the chemical plants or in the refinery, it's always the same equipment and it's always the same way we operate them. And this is where we bring in knowledge. So we have developed an approach out of our technical consultancy teams where we go to a site, not in the core processes, but everything around. We assess all of the auxiliary equipment and how it's managed and how it's operated. We measure, for example, the effectiveness of the insulation. We measure the efficiency of a drive. We measure the CO2 emissions of a combustion systems, and we benchmark it. Yeah, because we have this know-how also out there on how other companies are performing when it comes to sustainability. So we go there, we measure it, we benchmark it, and then we go into meaningful discussions with the clients on what they can do differently. And we have done quite a few of those projects, contracts, product services last year. They have been adding up to a CO2 saving, a yearly CO2 savings of 120,000 tons per year. And if you remember our Scope 1 and 2 emissions, this is more savings that we have generated our clients only through this one than we as Bilfinger pull out every year. So you see we have a huge impact on the CO2 emissions in the industries. And this is, by the way, these 120,000 tons, that's not only the ideas from us, no, those are really those ideas that the client has implemented and where the plant is now operating in a different model. Of course, we are coming up with much more ideas, but then we also always have to calculate the cost-benefit issue. So this is really those things that have been implemented. So this is real savings on the CO2. But we cannot only do this on paper, we can also do it in real life. And this is where really the beauty of our business model comes, as we are covering the full value chain. We are also doing the things that we are proposing. Another example here is electrification of boilers. The chemical plants, the steel plant, many other plants, they use a lot of hot water, steam, hot gases. That all has to be heated. Now, in the past, that heating was done in boilers who were driven by coal, gas, and oil. That's not good for a CO2 footprint. In the future, all of those boilers will be powered by electricity, and the electricity comes from wind, from solar, or from green hydrogen. And as an example, we have been working with one of the biggest industrial parks in the Netherlands, where we have designed the new e-boiler system, so taking it from conventional to electricity. We've designed it, we've done the detailed design, but we also took out the old boiler system and installed a new boiler system. And that again is something which is very unique because again, you will not find a lot of companies within Europe who can do all of that. And this is how we really add value to our clients. In that example, it was 30,000 tons nearly of CO2 reduction within 1 year, year by year by year by year. And this is something where we distinguish ourselves from those companies, from those peers who are only providing single services, individual services. And you will see us doing more and more of that. And these examples also you can see for in the chart where we've shown that we have doubled our revenue within those green technologies, green services. That's just 2 examples of that. I just realized the time does not count the minutes, but it's the time. Okay. You see me doing this for the first time. Okay, I'm learning. 5 minutes to go. Bettina tricked me on this one.
Fine.
Yeah, oh, that's good. Sorry, back to serious. Standardization, we were talking about standardization. To give you one example, how are we going to do this? Again, this is a live example. You see a beautiful scaffold that we are building behind that. And we have, I don't know how many tons of scaffolds standing around and being built and being demolished day by day across Europe. Now, what we did in Belgium, we were looking at the typical level 1 scaffold. This is, that's quite an unexciting level 1 scaffold. And we are building this everywhere across Europe. What we did in Belgium, we went from one side to the next and we were looking at the crews on how they are building these scaffolds. And someone was standing there with the stopwatch and taking the time and looking how they are building this. Where do they start? Where do they finish? Believe it or not, there is a huge time difference on how this work is executed. The result is always the same. It always looks like this. But some of the teams, they managed to do in 13 minutes, 1-3. Some of them, they required 45 minutes because they did it in a different way. So what did we do out of that? We defined a standardized way on how to build such a scaffold. We've done the technical documentation. We put that to our training centers that we have in Bene, in Zwijndrecht, and in Rosendahl as an example, and all the new scaffolders that are coming or when they have the regular training, they are now trained to do that kind of job, not in 45 minutes, but in 13 minutes. 70% less time. Benefit for us that, of course, we partially move on to our clients. And as I explained, we will do this more and more and more. We are organizing ourselves also around product centers who will drive this type of standardization. And now comes my favorite example. Shell Moerdijk and rope access. This is a very nice example on how we work more and more together with the client and how we can add value that no one else can. Shell Moerdijk is a big chemical plant outside of Rotterdam. We have started doing work there since 1969, when we had our first framework contract on insulation. And since that time, day by day, week by week, year by year, we are there on site and work together with Shell. No day without us on that site since then. In 2012, we've added another service, is painting. Now in 2020, we've added engineering. And in 2021, we've added mechanical, piping, rope access, and inspections. If you go to that big chemical plants, you will not find any peer from us that can cover all of the services that we are doing. And that puts us in a very good position. In the remaining 3 minutes, I want to give you one example of that. And that is inspection at the loading dock with rope access. What is a loading dock? In the end, it's an area that is, like say, 30 meters high, 10 to 20 meters broad, and 100 meters long. You see a picture of that there. It's full of pipes. It's pipes everywhere. And these pipes are insulated. So every 5 or 10 years, you need to check the quality of the insulation of the pipe. And where they're not good enough, you have to replace them. What is the conventional way of doing this? In the past, Shell goes to a scaffolding company comes, builds up the scaffold. Then Shell goes to the inspection company. The people from the inspection company, they go up the scaffolds, they visualize and they take a look at the quality of the insulation, they write the reports, they're going down again. Then Shell goes to the next company, which is usually a mechanical or an insulation company. And the mechanical guys and the insulation guys from the third company, they're going up, they're exchanging the insulation, they're going down again. Then Shell goes back to company number 1, to the scaffolding company. And the scaffolding company goes there and takes away the scaffold. Now, what we have to develop together with Shell on that side is doing all of that through rope access. The gentlemen who are doing the upseiling and up-climbing here all the time. So we have bundled all in this into one. And our rope access people, they went there, they did the inspection, and they also did the exchange of the insulation. We did not have to build a scaffold. And that means that the total costs of that were 60% lower than during the conventional approach. And in addition, that also meant that Shell has only one point of contact, only one contract, not 3 or 4. So we reduced complexity for Shell as well. And we're taking on higher responsibility in educating the work. That moves us up the value chain. And finally, the whole program in the past always lasted 6 months. We were able to execute it in 2 months, 4 months less time. What's the result of that? Good reference case for us. And now, as we're talking, we do the next 200 meters at Moerdijk with exactly the same approach. So I still have 1 minute. So this hopefully shows you why we are in a good market, why we can grow above market average because of our strong position that we already have, and how we will further bring our EBITDA margin to 7 to 8% midterm, and that there's also good examples that we utilize already, and that there's a good plan behind that. Thank you.
Good. That with the watch, we
need to train
about it.
Anfängerfehler.
Okay.
Questions?
Yeah. You have the possibility to pose direct questions after the segments or in the wrap-up session in the end. So
Okay, good.
Let's move on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.